Hello, welcome to the Talon Fantasy Podcast. Today we're with Danny, Mitchell, and Baker, and we're going to give you all the fantasy insight you need for this upcoming week of NFL football.
All right, so starting things off, we're going to talk about the Thursday night game with the Packers versus the Cardinals. Who are you guys starting in this game?
You gotta go with Kyler and Rogers, of course. A plus matchup for both of them. Should be a high scoring game. I'm also starting Jones and Edmonds and potentially Connor. He's been solid. He's getting carries. He's getting the goal line work. Edmonds has yet to get in the end zone, but he's still been consistent around 10, 12 points a game. I'm starting all three of the running backs.
I gotta tell you, I really like Arizona's deep threats this week. Christian Kirk is the biggest name that stands out to me. Defensive coordinator for the Packers has Corona. Jair Alexander's out. You have to do some damage in the red zone, but I think I can air it out. And Kirk is usually on the receiving end of those. So a name to look out for, especially if you're in a deeper league and need a flex play. Christian Kirk is the guy to keep an eye on.
Speaking of wide receivers, are you guys starting any of the Packers wide receivers with Lazard and Adams on the COVID list?
Randall Cobb, if very necessary. Like, that is if you have bye weeks or injuries. But I'm not starting Randall Cobb over anyone who you would normally start. And not Marquez Valdez. Maybe he goes off for like 2 catches for like 70 yards and a touchdown, whatever, fine. Like, I can't bank on that happening. And he's right off the IR. I'm not comfortable starting any of them unless very dire need.
There's no viable receivers for the Packers this week. It's going to be a very Aaron Jones friendly week.
If you're really if you're struggling to find some tight end depth and you need to fill in this week, Tunyon, if you believe that the Packers are still going to be able to move the ball, is a great play. I'm not saying he's going to give you 15, 20 points, but if you're looking for more like 10, 12, probably with a touchdown and like 4 or 5 catches.
That's what he did all last year. So now with Devontae out of the mix, Lazard out of the mix, Tony's going to be pushing off. So in PPR leagues especially, if you need a tight end fill-in, put Tony's way.
All right. So now moving on to anyone else you guys are starting that game? AJ Green, Ertz, either of them?
I don't like any of these short these guys who are really work better in the short to midfield range this week. I think it's going to be a shootout. And if not, then they're going to be more swing passes to Edmonds and runs to Connor. I don't think Ertz he'll probably end up with 2-3 catches this week. But I don't think he gets in the end zone. AJ Green, he'll always end up with 3-4 catches, but
inconsistent and not a lot of upside. So unless you're really desperate, not a great play.
I agree.
There's just way too many weapons in that Arizona offense for all of them to have a good week at the same time. It's just as simple as that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now let's move on to the Sunday game, starting off with the Panthers versus Falcons. Who are you guys starting on the Panthers?
No one.
I don't think.
No.
Panthers?
Maybe Chuba if you need a flex or RB2.
I think Chuba's a clear start actually in this one. I think the Falcons have a pretty weak overall defense, and with the running back situation overall, you at least know he will get the workload. I think DJ Moore's a start every week, no matter what. So I think that's a pretty safe bet. But I think Chuba's a pretty solid RB2 play this week.
It does depend on your other options, I think, for Hubbard, because last week he didn't do amazing with the touches that he got. He is getting the touches. The volume is there, but he hasn't been spectacular. He hasn't been like the Mike Davis fill-in from last season. And I just don't think this week he'll probably be good. Like I just didn't think of him right away. But like I'm probably starting him. But if I have other options, I would look to them.
And from the Falcons, I think clear starts are Pitts, Ridley, and Cordero. Is there anyone else you're starting in this?
Honestly, if you need a quarterback, you can start Matt Ryan. That Panthers defense has not looked good as of late, especially that secondary. And I feel like the Falcons wide receiver core and Kyle Pitts can just break them and just get down the field easily.
I agree with
Yeah.
Matt Ryan. I think that he's poised to explode. He's had a few solid weeks, nothing unbelievable. And Matt Ryan, he's always going to have a few like 40-point games, maybe like one or two with a few like 7s and 8s mixed in there. And I think this week is potentially one of them at home against the division opponent. I think that he could really go off for a good old-fashioned Matt Ryan game here.
This game is especially for the Eagles. Does anyone know if Gilmore's making his first start this week?
I do not, but I mean,
Well,
If he is, I know that the Panthers are trading for Melvin Ingram, and Gilmore's on his way to Carolina too to get the rotation. And you can really, if you have an offensive player against the Panthers, I wouldn't go out as far to say it's like go into the game.
quarterbacks facing Carolina. It's a very risky team to face. They have great wing seven. They have good boundary corners now. I wouldn't look at them and say, oh, that's defense that they Matt Ryan is a veteran. I believe he'll probably have a couple touchdowns this week. But I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable starting anyone on the team except the defenses this week.
I mean, I just want to point out that Gilmore is going to be out this week. So, like, there is really nobody in that secondary for Carolina.
Yeah, so
And
definitely.
speaking of
Because the safety is strong.
I think that if Ridley has a week to break out, this is should have a lot of offensive possessions. No break with Gilmore out, and so Ridley should definitely take advantage. But also, it matters with Parker Smith, the guys calling plays for the Falcons will send Ridley deep for once instead of just putting him on 5-yard cigarettes.
Danny, can you just make sure your mic's working? Kind of tough to hear over here.
it cuts in
Can you hear me
and
now?
out. Yep. It just cuts in and out every time you speak.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next game. So we got the Dolphins versus the Bills. I think the clear starts this week are mostly on the Bills' side with Diggs and Allen. I don't know if
Yup.
there's.
Yup.
I'm also probably starting Gesicki for sure, as well as Waddle.
Diggs, Allen, wherever they are. Yeah, definitely both of them. I'm actually very against Devontae Parker this week. He should have a tough matchup against a solid Buffalo secondary, especially with Waddle now taking a lot of targets and Gesicki lining up in the slot. I think, 95% of the time? Mitchell, that's your favorite stat.
94.2, but yeah.
Not bad. But on Buffalo, do we trust either of the running backs?
I do not. Just
I
'cause
do
now
not
they're
either.
getting-
No.
I think the interesting running back actually is Gaskin. Malcolm Brown was placed on the IR, so that's one
I
more
did
guy
not
to
know
take.
that.
So that's one more guy to take away his carries, which means I think for the next few weeks he is a solid play. At the same time, though, that the way they use their running backs in Miami does not ever give me confidence because you don't know week to week. Like last week, he outsnapped Salvon Ahmed big time. I could easily see them just randomly giving Salvon Ahmed more touches than him for no real reason. But at the same time, this week is going to be a very big negative game script just because they're playing one of the best teams in the National Football League. So I think Gaskin is a solid start this week at RB2.
I just wanted
Yeah.
to I just wanted to add real quick that I would definitely be careful thinking about just because Malcolm Brown's out, that Gaskin is all of a sudden elevated. Of course, he's going to get a couple more carries, but definitely make sure that
I don't think
so
so. Gaskin would still score receptions. I would assume unprotected. On my end.
All right. Anyone else you guys are starting in this game, though?
I mean, not really. I feel like Emmanuel Sanders could be an interesting flex play this week. seeing him go up against who is the number 2? Is it Byron Jones still there in Miami?
I think Byron Jones
What?
is
Who?
out. Yeah,
Jones.
Is he there?
Byron Jones and Xavier Howard haven't played this year, so that secondary is pretty weak. So I don't
Yeah, no.
think.
So any of the Buffalo wide receivers could be interesting to play, especially with Knox most likely going to be out with his broken hand, and seeing that
Hammer Stephon Diggs.
and Sanders has been an interesting touchdown machine this year for Buffalo as of late. He's been finding the end zone on a regular basis.
Although I'm never really.
What do we think about Cole Beasley? He's been over the past few years. He's been consistent, one of the most consistent receivers in the league. This year has been anything but. Do we think that is a product of Emmanuel Sanders or just a shift in the offense?
I think it's neither. I think it's just a lot of mouths to feed, and you can't expect him to get fed every week. I think there's just certain weeks where it's the same thing that happens in Arizona. They're not as sustainable just because of the fact that there's so many guys who they can throw to in a pass heavy offense that depending on the week, he could easily get 12 targets or 5.
Moving on, next game in the 1 o'clock window. That's a tough game. I believe there's a few solid starts, but like no more than.
I feel like Devo is going to be a start this week.
I think there's
Devo's an every week wide receiver 1 at this point.
To me, there's only 2 starts in this game. Or there's 3 actually. To me, there's only 3 starts: Elijah Mitchell, Khalil Herbert, and Devo. I don't think
Devo popped up on the injury report though this week too with the calf injury. Was limited.
He should be fine for game time. Like
all I'm saying is make sure you check to see if he is okay, because the last thing you want is a game time decision. You plug him in your lineup thinking that he's an every week wide receiver 1 and he gets limited snaps. That's what happened to Mike Williams 2 weeks ago.
I don't care if he gets limited snaps. He's still gonna drop 20.
He's
the only person getting the football. He's averaging like 10 targets a game at least.
All I'm saying is make sure he's on the field to see 10 targets a game. That's all.
Yeah, I get where you come from. But besides the 2 running backs, because Monty is out this week, I think Herbert's a solid start. I think Elijah Mitchell's a good start. Besides those guys, I'm never starting any of the pass catchers in Chicago until I see Fields figure out how to pass the ball. But
they need a bench Fields.
That brings me to at this point.
He honestly is, in my opinion.
He's closing in on it. I mean, I'm still holding him till after the NFL trade deadline, hoping that maybe he gets traded and becomes a solid receiver. But besides that, I think if you drop him, I'm not against it.
Him and Brandon Ayuk are 2 of the biggest question marks of this trade deadline, along with Evan Engram. Just going to get traded there. But I can report that I think it was the Cowboys are trying to use him in a Jason Witten type role if they were to trade for him, which is very interesting. I wouldn't exactly think of him as a Jason Witten type player, just because of the speed that he has. But yeah, the trade deadline should be very interesting for a few of these teams looking to pick up a player.
I wouldn't really understand. Were you saying your mic cut out for a little bit? Were you talking about Engram going to the Cowboys?
He was talking about Evan Engram going to the Cowboys.
So to me, Evan Engram has no blocking ability whatsoever, and is more just used as a vertical threat, just a bigger receiver.
He really doesn't even have any catching ability as well.
Oh, right. So he really just beats linebackers off of pure speed. And he's not even really that fast. He's just, as compared to linebackers, he is faster. So to put him, I mean, and then you got to look at what that would do to Dalton Schultz, who's been one of the better tight ends this year in fantasy. That would now take away value from Amari, CD, Dalton Schultz, and Evan Engram. Any pass catching back on that, I mean, any pass catcher on that team, if we're exaggerating what Engram's role is actually going to be, But I would assume if they're running double tight end sets, it'd be Schultz as blocking and Ertz as receiving. I mean, Ingram as receiving.
Yeah, I was actually mistaken. They're not looking at trade for him. He just mentioned that Jason Witten was a pioneer for the tight end position and what he's trying to do. I took that as the Cowboys wanted to use him like Jason Witten. But yeah, I still think that he will be traded and he will fit in to whatever team wants to use him as long as they use him as this vertical threat as opposed to a primary run blocker.
I
So
agree.
let's look at the Steelers and the Browns staying in the 1 o'clock window. Who's your guys' starts for this game?
On the Browns, only Nick Chubb. Literally only Nick
Not
Chubb.
even starting Chubb.
I don't trust anyone else on the Browns until Mayfield gets back to 100%. And it's only Chubb because of pure workload at this point against the Steelers. I know they got a good front seven, but just because of game script and opportunity, Chubb should still put up a solid floor. If he gets in the end zone, 20 plus points. And on the Steelers, Najee, but I don't love any of the Steelers receivers personally. I get why you go Deontay, but it's always you can never really predict who Big Ben is going to want to target game by game.
You got to start Deontay.
I think you can. I think Deontay gets the targets weekly. The guy I'm keeping an eye on, honestly, isn't Claypool. It's Pat Fryermuth because he gets. I'm not starting him, but if you look at it, since Juju's been out, there needs to be somebody catch. He's basically taking over that role of catching the ball in the middle of the field. I don't want him yet, but just as like a sneaky waiver pickup for somebody on a bye, he could be a decent guy to look out for if he continues to get. He had 7 targets last week, so if he gets somewhere near that this week, he might be worth looking at picking up.
Yeah. I mean, usually my only problem with Firemouth is they got so many big receivers there, like meaning literal height, like height wise. Claypool's huge, 6'3", 6'4". And so Firemouth really isn't the only red zone threat. And you got Najee, who they're going to try and force feed anytime they're between 20 yards and the goal line. So usually if I don't have a very reliable tight end, I look and see who has the best chance of getting in the end zone. That is not Pat Fryermuth. But if he can start to generate more volume and Big Ben really starts to distribute between literally Deontay Johnson and Fryermuth as a safety valve, then yeah, he's an interesting pickup.
Can't really start Pat Fryermuth or like a third target in that offense when Najee Harris is accumulating 46 targets over like 6 weeks or whatever. Like, he's the number 2 receiver on this team, no matter how weird that is. And I just can't comfortably start Claypool or Fryermuth or anyone else on that offense besides Johnson, for that matter.
I agree for at least this week. Those are Claypool and Fryermuth are just guys I think I'd like to keep an eye on. But moving on to the biggest game of the week, we got the Eagles facing the Lions. Are you guys starting many people in this? I think
Jalen Hurts.
Swift, not Smith.
Terrible
Swift.
quarterback.
I'm starting Goddard, Gainwell, Hurts, and then Hawkinson and Swift, and that's about it.
I'm starting
Any
Goddard
arguments?
out of sheer need for the tight end position. Andrews is on a bye. Kittle's obviously injured. Waller's on a bye. There's just not a lot of options. So if you need someone, start Goddard. He's probably going to get you like 6 points. But the off chance that he gets in the end.
Yep. I think that's the simplest.
Yeah, I know.
Any more guys we're starting there? Or does that seem like the simplest one?
That's probably the simplest one we had yet.
Moving on to the Texans versus the Rams. Anyone know? Tyrod Taylor's expected to be back next week, right? Not this week.
He has a 21-day window to return. So
go trade for
either
Brandon
next
Cook?
week or 2 weeks. And actually, you know what? He was one of the more interesting. If you have a quarterback on the bye late in the season, obviously at this point, the rookies have kind of shown. If you draft a rookie late round, you've kind of seen what they can do. If you don't feel comfortable there, Tyrod will give you rushing yards, at least a touchdown in a week. I don't mind him as a flyer in the future, but at the same time, right now, as long as Davis Mills is back there, unless I guess he's facing Bill Belichick and the Patriots, he's not throwing for more than 200 yards. So even Brandon Cooks, I'd feel very questionable about. I know he has high volume, but if you can't move the football, you can't move the football.
Yeah. And on the
Brandon
other
Cooks is an interesting one. He has been super consistent this season, and
some people value him as much to offer him in a trade for Tyreek Hill, whereas most people don't. I, for one, don't. I think he is nothing
without Tyrod as
he was good with Tyrod, but without him, I just don't think I can play him at anything more than a flex player.
And also this week, give me all the Cooper Cup. Like, I'd be
For
very
sure.
scared. I'd be very scared if you're facing Cooper Cup in one of your leagues this week. If he can put up 40 against teams with reliable defenses, then against the Texans with multiple possessions, holding the ball for probably 3/4 of the game. Cooper Cup, I would say he probably sees around 15 targets today. On Sunday. Just based on Stafford's ability to throw down the field, the Sean McVay's aggressive play calling. There's no reason the game script should change to Darrell Henderson force feed just because they're facing the Texans. I still expect them to air it out. And who else besides Cooper Cup should be the recipient there?
I don't know if I completely agree with that. I have a feeling this could go to more of a Giants game script, which is basically whoever strikes first in the first half gets the points. So if Woods starts off, I still think you're starting Woods, Henderson, Stafford, and Cup, and possibly Higbee if you need to.
Yeah.
But I think it's similar to what happened in the Giants, where you had Woods start off hot with 4 catches, 20-something yards, and a touchdown, and then do nothing the rest of the game just because they started to run the ball more. Yeah, they air it out. Cup still gets his work. Woods will get some, but it's weird with that if they're still going to start running the ball. And I think Henderson becomes a top 10 play at least this week.
I would be very scared if you're facing Darrell Henderson this week.
Coming from the newest Darrell Henderson fantasy owner.
Very positive game script for him. I'm a proud Darrell Henderson owner as of last night. I think
I've been him for the whole season. So.
I've been watching him with a close eye, and I think that tomorrow, when is it? Sunday. Sorry. Will be a huge game for him just because they're facing Houston. Terrible defense. They will be up by 30-plus points in the first quarter, probably. So Darrell Henderson will get the football, and he will get probably upwards of 20 touches.
I completely agree. Moving on to the next game, I think we have Titans versus Colts. It's another interesting one. I think on the Colts side, you have I think there's only 2 starts, and I think they're every week starters, and Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor.
Completely agree.
Besides that, I'm not doing much. Titans, obviously, you're starting Derrick Henry.
Honestly, A.J. Brown's a start this week.
I don't know why that's honestly. I think that's he's an every week starter. He's back now.
Yeah, that's not a hot take, Rohan.
It's not a hot take, but he's starting now. He's back at his.
Honestly, I think that Tyreek Hill might be a good start this week. No, I'm not sure.
I'm questionable on that. The one I am actually questionable on is Julio Jones.
Julio Jones is going to have
not questionable. I am benching him.
Bench him if you have him. He's not going to have a good week.
Until he proves to me that he can put up more than 7 points in a game with A.J. Brown, he is staying on the bench.
And I think besides that,
this Titans offense is literally run with Derrick Henry, play action, and a pass to A.J. Brown. That's all it is.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it works.
It
And that's
works.
why that's why I'm not starting Tannehill yet, just because with Henry getting 30
Never that.
touches, I don't. Also, Rohan, can you change the meeting time?
Yeah.
All right. So I think
We're
now,
playing Colts. All right, we got that.
yeah. All right. Moving on
down
to the
again.
next game. It's going to be a close game here. We got the Bengals versus the Jets.
Oh God.
I think Joe Flacco's this clear start this week.
Bengals defense in every league. They're getting 12 points at least. They're getting at least 4.5 sacks. I don't know why I said 4.5, but they're getting at least 5 sacks. Uzoma a solid start this week if you need a tight end. Only if you like just recently traded like Zach Ertz or something and you really need a tight end this week, Uzoma could be a solid play.
Yeah, hot take. I think Uzoma's going to ball out 2 touchdowns. Pretty much similar to last week. Probably like 150 yards. So give him the bonus too. Late 40 piece for Uzoma this week. Even if you have I don't know, like Kelsey this week against the Giants, throw that out the window. Bring in Uzoma, guaranteeing you a win this week.
Is that a bias?
Not actually. Just I'm dropping Uzoma after this week.
I think the guy who actually might do that, 2 touchdowns, 150 yards, because he can do it basically any week, is Jamar Chase. Obviously, he's basically a top 5 receiver at this point, so you're obviously starting him every week. I'm also starting T. Higgins and Burrow, and Mixon definitely as a start.
Yeah.
I kind of like Piron too this week. If you need a running back, looking for garbage time points, if they're up big on the Jets, I don't think they keep Mixon in the game. Piron has showed that he can produce with touches, even last week. So if you really need a running back, let's say somebody's on bye, and you don't have bench depth, definitely look Piron's way.
Before we switch over, Mitchell, you mentioned weekly top 5 receiver, Jamar Chase. Who do we think is our top 5 receivers? Because I've heard a lot of different opinions this week when I've been trying to trade receivers. Who do we think is weekly top 5 receivers?
Well, you can check out mine, but mine goes Cup 1, Adams 2, Hill 3, Chase 4, Diggs 5. And
we think Diggs is a top 5 receiver because I disagree.
He's still getting the volume.
He gets the volume, and he's playing in a high-powered offense. I don't know.
He gets 25% of the passes in that offense.
To me, some days. I mean, my whole thing with that is, to me, I have Jefferson at 6, but Jefferson has Cook and Thielen taking away stuff, so they actually run the ball a lot more than I see the Bills do. And Diggs still gets all his targets. He finally had a really good week before the bye. I still think he is. I think he has a pretty large opportunity to move down. I think Hopkins or Jefferson could move back up, and possibly Debo actually, because those are my 6 through 8. But for now, I think it goes Cup 1, Adams 2, Hill 3, Chase 4, Diggs 5.
Now I'm interested. Where do you have Jacoby Myers on that list? Because I'm looking at targets this season, and he is like 7th, 8th in targets. Yeah, 8th in targets this season, ahead of Mike Evans, ahead of Jefferson, ahead of Diggs. Just hasn't gotten in the end zone.
And that's why I don't have him high, because there's a difference. Evans gets in the end zone, but Evans also has Tom Brady as his quarterback, a team that throws a lot of touchdowns. Jacoby Myers hasn't gotten in the end zone, and it's not going to be easy for him too, because Mac Jones just doesn't throw much touchdowns. I have Jacoby Myers at 40. So
who's that around?
Sterling Shepard, Emmanuel Sanders, Tyler Boyd, Devonta Smith.
Okay, there is way too much Sterling Shepard hate right now. When he is healthy on the field, like over 10 targets, 3 out of 4 weeks, I want to say, that he's played. And he's catching about 75% of those targets. So if you want a high volume high volume receiver in a PPR league, Shepard is probably available in most leagues. I'd say available in about 40% of leagues if I had to guess. Definitely worth a pickup, even for trade bait once he starts putting up 15 again.
So how high are you putting him in your rankings? And I'll ask you if he's better than the guys who I have at that spot.
Off of no context, first number that pops in my brain, I want to say about 30.
Okay, I have him at 39. At 30, I have Waddle.
Yeah.
31, I have Lockett. 32, I have Julio. 34, I have Tony.
Yeah, I'm playing Shepard over Lockett right
And
now.
Julio
Over
off
Lockett,
that list.
I'm playing him over Julio. Who wouldn't want a high volume, high catch receiver in the PPR leagues?
The only thing now is in those weeks, Tony was either not playing or hadn't done much. So I want to see now that Tony's back this week. I got to see what happens with the two of them on the field. I'm pretty sure
Is he playing? I heard it was iffy. That's a quote.
If he plays, then I want to see that. If not, Sterling Shepard's a good start this week. But
Shepard is also iffy.
Especially if Evan Engram gets traded, Shepard's value goes up again.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Evan Engram. That's why I'm saying Evan Engram is a solid start this week. Shepard, Saquon, Tony, Galladay, all iffy on the closer to the outside of questionable. So that's why I think Evan Engram is a solid start.
Are we switching meetings
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.